Okay, my name's Steve Phillips. I played sports in Marshall County. I played basketball for Plymouth High School from 1967 to 1971. Also played other sports and baseball for a few years and golf for 1 year. But mostly it was basketball I played at Plymouth High School.
All right. So what I like to do is I'm interested in finding out like how people got their passion for the sport that they ended up, playing and being really good at. So I kind of like to start at the beginning and ask people, about their, how they grew up. So what was, what was the area like when you grew up?
The area when I grew up, and my relatives are from Bourbon, and so I grew up in Marshall County all my life to that point. And we rented a house in Donaldson, Indiana, which was close to Ancilla College at that time, but they moved to Ancilla recently, I think. But we lived out on State Road 30, just east of Donaldson, and became interested in basketball from going to games at West School. I went to West School, and being a small school like that, everybody went to games, and I was in first grade, second grade, third grade, and my mother, she took tickets at the games, and she was a secretary for West School, and they had a principal named Mr. Rust, and then also Bill Snyder. Bill Snyder was the basketball coach then. So Bill sort of took my brother and I, David, under his wing, and I come from a divorced family, and they got us interested in baseball, got us interested in basketball. So from that point, just going to the games and putting a rim on the side of the barn in Donaldson, that's how interest was generated, and I thought it was fun. And
so barn ball has been a topic that a lot of people have brought up as far as being the thing that got them, really interested in basketball. Did you play against a lot of other people in barn balls? Did you have a group of players?
Not really at that point. We didn't go many places. It's a lot different then than it is now. You have leagues now and you go play and whatever. Back then it was more or less from the standpoint you practiced on your own, although, and get to that later, but in junior high school, when I moved to Plymouth, there was night games at a courts by Lincoln Junior High School. I think it's still a junior high school. And we'd play basketball there at night. But at that elementary age, it was more or less you're on your own with your brothers, and of course you hear things and watch things, and what you do is you try to imitate them and try to imitate situations, and like everybody says, and just sort of imagine.
Did you have a hero sports-wise that you?
Not at that time. I didn't at that time. I'd say probably as I got older, as a player called Rick Mount, that would have been, he was probably 4 years or so older than I, but he played at Purdue, and I think he played at Lebanon. That, although I would watch as I got older, I would watch the Plymouth players. I couldn't name some of them now, but I watched the best I could there. We didn't have, a lot of money, so it wasn't a matter of the fact of you borrowed shoes and you got shoes wherever you could. You didn't have uniforms. You didn't go too many places to games unless you got in, like my mom, got in, watch games free because she worked there. So more or less it was just the fact of, you generated that, and people like Bill Snyder and people along the way, Mike Mercer in junior high, and I don't know if you know some of these, but Jim Waller and Jack Edison and Steve Yoder, and they sort of, yeah, sort of helped along the way and made it interesting and fun for me.
Yeah, so we did have Bill come in for an interview. So
oh, you did?
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about his impact on you.
Bill's impact was very good. It was an impressionable impact because I remember we would go Donaldson to West School's about 4 or 5 miles back door, or the back way. And so my mother had to go to work, and my dad, it was a split family. And so we took our bikes, being in elementary, and rode 5 miles, which you wouldn't do today probably, by the way. So we drove over there in the morning, and this was for baseball, and we played 10 to 12 and 13 to 15, or really 8 to 12 baseball there. So Bill would always sort of make sure we were where we were supposed to be. And then after that, after we played summer baseball, he would drive a bus to Lake Max, Kentucky, I think as I said, and we'd go swimming in the afternoon, and then we ride back. So, but Bill was always, he made it fun, and he made it enjoyable. He made you work and everything as he got older, but he was very good at making it fun when you were young, which I think is more important than anything. So, yeah. But he was a good guy, and I remember he was the coach, and West did not have a lot of winning seasons. I remember that. I don't know who the team was, but if he would have beaten some team, he was going to dribble the basketball back. I don't know if he said that in his interview or whatever. And somewhere, and I remember a picture somewhere that if he didn't give it to you guys, he probably should have, of him dribbling down the road. But he made it fun like that. And I think West School, we played places like Talma and Monterey and all kinds of schools you never heard of now. But at the same time, we were always 2-18. But he made it a lot of fun, and that's what I remember about Bill in my elementary years at West School.
He was he's quite the character.
Bill was quite the character then, and even at the program a month or two ago, you could tell he was still a character, but just an older age and a more seasoned character. But yeah, he was quite the character for practical jokes, but he made things fun, and I think that was important. So.
Well, I think to have adults like that, when you're a kid, somebody's willing to put the time in, to show an interest.
Very much so. It's sad. That's sometimes lost now, So everything's so structured, and you got to do that, and everything, the whole work. But other than that, that was my elementary, and that's what made it fun and enjoyable.
So West School, which ended up going through consolidation, right?
Went through consolidation. I think, from my memory, went through in the program a few months ago, said start here the 6th grade. My memory is the 7th grade I started here, and we moved from Donaldson to West Jefferson. 315 West Jefferson. Now it looks a lot different. It did when we lived in it. But we moved there and we rented there, and that's where I attended Plymouth at. But I remember going to Plymouth and going to Lincoln Junior High School, and I remember coming in. It was such a big place, and it was very scary for a person that got most of the clothes from Salvation Army and shoes from wherever. But I remember it was just a very imposing move. That I remember going to school at Lincoln, and there was I think Blanda was a football coach. I played football for one day, I think, and said I don't want to do that anymore. But I remember coming in, and it was just very large compared to where we came from. So
Big transition.
big transition, and from that standpoint, I remember trying out for basketball as a 7th grade, and they had a lot of people try out, and I was very nervous and whatever. And then Mike Mercer, I think Jim Waller was there too, but Mike Mercer he's been here a long time. I don't know if you know Mike or not. But anyway, we tried out, and I was the last one to try out. You had to dribble around cones and shoot some shots and whatever. And I remember I was set in Lincoln Junior High School used to have a gym behind it, not Centennial, but it was attached to there, and the nets broke down somewhere during tryouts. It was just hanging there. And it got to me being last, and I know everybody was here, and what Mike Mercer did, most people, it took 5-10 minutes a person. I just dribbled around once and then shot about 2 or 3 shots and said, okay, we're done. And I went home, and I'll always remember that because I kept thinking I was halfway upset and crying and the whole work because I didn't make the team. Because I said, he didn't think I was any good. And so I'll always remember that. I don't know if it was a day or 2 before they posted on a wall or whatever they did. And that aspect, I made the team. But for about 24 hours or a weekend, whatever it was, I thought, it's a big school, and I wasn't good enough to make the team. So that was something I'll always remember.
I think from what I heard from Steve Yoder,
Mm-hmm.
they had already kind of,
Mm-hmm.
you had already kind of a reputation as a good player even before that, right?
Correct, but when you're that age, you don't know what reputation is. And when he said that a couple of months ago, Coach Yoder said that, I didn't know that. I kept thinking, oh man, but no, I didn't know anything about a reputation. That what they were talking about, I just thought, man, I didn't make the team, and I liked basketball so much, and I thought, and basketball really saved me. I could have very easily went south as far as getting into more trouble. If your mother's sitting there as a secretary to the principal, and it's a little different back then. You paid the price when you got home. So, but sports was good to me in keeping me, as Nick, you said, it consumed my idle time, and it was fun for me.
So, looking back at that time, you're, just starting to get your love for basketball. What do you think it was about that sport that just caught you?
Well, I think it's obsessive compulsive behavior a little, just the standpoint of, hey, listen, I think I could do this, and I think that I'm going to give 100%, and I think it also, you have that gratification feeling, and you felt like at that time, hey, listen, you're recognized for something, and I know that sounds maybe not right, but at the same time, it's human nature. Yeah. And so I think as that grew, and the coaches and the people that helped, I think that was helped me along the way. My mother, I don't know if my mother ever went to a game, and which is unusual now. She didn't have a real interest. She was very athletic for back then. She was 5'9", 5'10". But my dad was not in athletics, so it wasn't a matter of that. I don't say that with respect to them, because they were good parents in their way, and but at the same time, I think I just sort of got an interest in people on the outside, helped out, and made it work.
So your mom's pretty tall then?
She was, for that age era. Their kids are taller now than their parents for the most part, and if you look at it, if that whatever. But she was up 5'9", 5'10" for in the 50s and the 40s and the 60s. That was good. My dad, though, was like 5'8", So I wish I'd have been 6'3" or 6'5", but I didn't make it.
So did you said you had an older brother, right?
David, my older brother, he played basketball. Also, we'd play. He liked it, but it wasn't like, the practicing that I did, and the time he didn't have that interest in it. But he was very good. He's a super brother. He passed away in '74 from. Yeah, he was young. It was during the tornado that came through, I think, in '74 in the spring, and. But he enjoyed basketball. I always remember my brother from the standpoint that I came in as a freshman at Plymouth and played on the varsity, and he was a junior, but I never sensed it once. And he was on the bench, but I always admired him for that, because a lot of times, your older brother, one's setting and one's playing, but there was never any friction, and always positive. So. He got everything else that was positive and right. So, but yeah, he was. My older brother played basketball too, and we had fun doing it growing up too.
So take me through your practice routine in the area. What did you
practice routine? Of course, at home out west, I'd after school go out and shoot. But here I would go to school, and if it was during school time and not during basketball, I would go home, and then I would go out and play basketball. If it was summertime, I would practice usually from 9 or 10 to 11 or 12 in the morning, go home for an hour, lift or exercise, which later got into lifting weights, but it's hard to tell. But would practice in the afternoons, and then go back to Lincoln at night. This would happen at the courts behind Lincoln Junior High. I think they're still there. But
like a full-time job for you.
Yeah, it was like 5 hours a day, and I would work on this and that and whatever. There wasn't a lot of playing until older years, but junior high, that's about what it would be. And I dribbled the basketball from West Jefferson to Lincoln and go the back route and have this, everything the same, and dribble up that hill to the junior high school, and then dribble back and do that. So it was a full-time job, and it was sort of being obsessed, compulsive, and but it took a lot of time, but I enjoyed it. And then I played baseball too at the junior high, and I enjoyed that a lot. But that sort of went by the wayside as I played more basketball.
Yeah. So you came in, you made the team in your 7th grade.
Mm-hmm.
You were worried that you wouldn't
Correct.
make it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So who was your coach that year?
Mike Mercer.
Okay.
Mike Mercer was a 7th grade coach, and I think Jim Waller, Waller, he was the 8th grade coach. I believe, when I was a 7th grader, but yeah, we had Mike Mercer, and we had a lot of fun. But it had fun when you win, and it's really good when you have fun when you don't win. But we had some success in 7th grade, and then 8th grade we had some success in Jim Waller, and so it, the camaraderie and everything, and was what sports is all about. And it sort of hooked me there.
So going into freshman year, and back then, a freshman playing on varsity was probably, because they had a freshman team and a JV
Correct.
team and a varsity team.
A little different than now many places.
Yeah. So how did you feel when you found out you were going to be on the varsity team?
Oh, a little anxious in some way. Steve Yoder, that was his first year. A gentleman by the name of Marvin Tudor was the coach before that, and I knew Coach Yoder, but it was more Marvin Tudor. He'd come, you knew when they'd drive by the park when you were playing, And it was more Marvin Tudor for a while, and then I think he went to Huntington or Penn or somewhere, and then it was Steve Yoder. Well, I remember Yoder parking behind Lincoln Junior High, watching play and whatever, and I'd always just wonder what's the coach doing, sitting here in the summertime, and he wasn't doing anything illegal. He just sat there, he wasn't, anything like that, but so that was my first visual of Coach Yoder. And then when football was on, he'd open the gym up, and it was Centennial, and the football team was practicing, and we'd practice, and I'd be, on teams with the older ones, but I never at that time crossed my mind that I would, be playing varsity. I thought, okay, I'll be on a freshman team, and sometimes then they moved you to the JV, that aspect, and that's what I was sort of looking at for the most part, and then when I found out that I was on the varsity, it was many different feelings. It was, boy, that feels good, and boy, enthusiastic, and there's an anxiety also because you have people, our players that are 4 years younger, and I was really a young age for my grade because of when I was born, but so I had people 4 years at least older than I am, and associating and having that mix is not always easy there. So there was a lot of mixed feelings there, but at the same time I was glad. Of course, my brother was there. He was a junior, and he played JV part of the time, so that's what made it different too. But yeah, a lot of different feelings. And that's what I'm saying is I'm not sure what it was, but and then when it got into the season, starting the games and whatever, I remember that. I think it was Mishawaka was the first game that year. I might be wrong on that, but it's different when there's more people in the stands, and also newspaper, and there's more interest. You could sense that than coming from an 8th grade that no one showed up, or very only parents and relatives showed up. So it was exciting.
Was there a time during that first year where you felt like, okay, I've got a handle on this, or?
I was getting a handle on this, then I broke my foot and didn't play a number of games, probably half the season.
Really?
Yeah, and so I was getting more and more comfortable, and maybe it was even more than half the games, but I was going the right direction. Yeah. And then that happens, and then I came back for the last game or two in the sectional. I had some pretty good scoring games there. So yeah, I guess I started to feel comfortable, started to get confidence. Hey, I can do this. And then I had a broken foot, and back then they put you in a cast even for a hairline fracture, and I got out of the cast and then got back to what I thought I could do.
That had to be pretty devastating.
Devastating, and that was good that I got to be able to come back and play in the sectional and do well in the sectional, and because that sort of motivated me through the summer for the next year, and so yeah, I was going in the right direction till that, and it didn't. But yeah, I can't ever remember thinking I couldn't do it, and I say that modestly. I don't mean it like that, but I kept thinking, I think I can do this.
So your shot was one of the things that a lot of people have talked about, like just your pure stroke. How did you develop your shot?
Or more or less just from practice and watching people. I wasn't really physically strong, and I thought, okay, I would like to shoot farther. Of course, now if you watch Seth Curry and those, and they just shoot it out there, I tell my wife that I'd do it different now. I would let that thing go. That's right. And mostly it's Centennial. I don't know if you ever were in Centennial when they played, but they had railroad lines, and you could almost come across that second one, but Yoder and whatever, let's work the ball. One of those things. But I think the shot just came from practice and being taught the right way as far as follow through and the whole works. As I got stronger, I could get it up over my head more than shoot it down here, and so.
So you probably didn't have like YouTube videos to watch or anything
No,
back then, so.
they had some very basic methods, but it was a Virgil Sweet video. You don't remember Virgil Sweet, but he was a coach at Valparaiso. I remember that, and always put your finger right where you put the air in the ball and bounce it 3 times and and you just go through all those things. But I don't remember nothing along that line at all. So it's just a matter you learn and you take it and also what you feel comfortable with, that aspect there. So, but nothing like that.
Something that you can do. Like, was that the same for you? Did you
Yeah,
feel like it was...
definitely. It was the same thing. It was my time to work on things and also at peace by myself and so Nick, you did the same thing I did. Just sort of, a lot of people now go to AAU and they go to all of these places and they never really practice on their own anymore, and I'm not I'm not pitching anything against the AAU, but sometimes you have to just go down and just doggone shoot and have to go rebound the ball, and it falls, it's not like you have people that rebound for you all the time. But yeah, it was a time to get away and relax and everything. So, it was a relaxing time. Good memories.
Yeah, I have those too. Yeah, especially you think about the warm summer days and you go out there and shoot for hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was great.
I couldn't do that.
Wish I had that kind of free time.
Yeah, and of course you were young, but I wish you had the energy now to do that, because I couldn't do that now at all. So, but after my freshman year, we came back with the sophomore year, and I felt pretty good there. And the sophomore year, the transition was a little more difficult even than the freshman, because your expectations are so, I already played a year and whatever, and coming back as a sophomore, we had some good success, thanks to players and everything, but we didn't win the sectional, which we thought we'd have a chance to do. But it was rewarding there, but it was more or less an adjustment again.
What was the feeling in the community around the team? Because it'd been a while since they'd had won a regional or anything like that, but it sounded like the team was kind of coming together.
Yeah, I think the thing that I'll always remember about Plymouth is the fact of you had good support, and you and I'm not always saying it, but even as a freshman at Centennial, and I know when you're younger, all buildings looks bigger than they do when but I can't remember for games that Centennial was never full or packed, and that's as a freshman or whatever. So and again, maybe I missed some games, but there was always good support, and I think the community felt that there was something coming, and because you could sense that just being in school or downtown or anywhere you go, and so there was a little togetherness there. So the enthusiasm, I think, was building every year, and that's the thing I'll remember about Plymouth is the fact that they came together, and we didn't produce their junior year. That I missed a shot there, but it was the community really treated our team and me very well. I appreciate that.
So what about, you said you missed a shot there.
Oh, the junior year we had a good team, and the sophomore year we thought we would, win more than 16, 17, and then the junior year we had a real good season, and then we went to the semi-state and played Fort Wayne and won in the afternoon. Beat Elkhart in the regional that year, which there was one school, and a lot of places like Michigan City and all those were just one school then. They weren't all Memorial and Central. They were one, but played in the Fort Wayne semi-state, and we both Carmel. They had a player called Dave Shepard, and we played them at night to go to the state finals, and I missed a shot. I think there's like 7 seconds left. You always remember these things. And they missed a free throw. They threw it to me. They bobbled the ball when they got the rebound, and Carmel was up 1. And the clock is straight above in the Fort Wayne Coliseum. And I shot it with about 3 seconds left, and I probably could have got closer and didn't hit it. I always say that Skiles hit his and I missed mine. So, yeah, that was the one that you always go back and you felt like you let a lot of people down. But people were very nice and kind and it works. But that was what I was thinking. I didn't produce like I probably should have, and came up with a shot that would have won it. But that happens to everybody.
Yeah. What did you feel, when the shot didn't go in?
Just, well, after thinking about it and the whole works, I thought I shot it too quick, and lost track of the bobble, and also there wasn't anything on the end I could look at. I lost track of the seconds, and but when it didn't go in, you could just feel like the air come out. Of course, they're cheering on one half of the Coliseum and not on the other. But it's the regular thing. I could have got a better shot, and I should have hit it.
Did it bother you?
Yeah, it bothered me coming back. It was always very nice. I remember the bus ride back, and we'd go through Bourbon, and there was people lined on the streets, and went through every place we went. Of course, it's a little different back then. You don't have the class sports and that standpoint, and everybody sort of watched, one thing, and you sort of represented the time. And also being the first time a town or somebody goes through that, it's a little different than that. But people were lined along the streets and everything, and made me feel better. But man, there was some getting over that one. There was some getting over that at that age. Yeah. But that's how it goes.
Did it motivate you at all for the next year?
Yes, it did. Wanted to go back, and senior year, and we didn't. But it did motivate me to improve. But it was a good 4-year career, and enjoyed it. And I was great a couple of months ago to see everybody in that era that was there to reminisce and remember the times there, because it was a golden time in my life anyway. That I'll always remember Plymouth for.
So you had a spectacular senior year, right? Set a couple of records.
Well,
all that good stuff.
it takes everybody. I had some good scoring games. I would say that. With that in mind, though, that the Jerry Kralovanskis, the Rick Williams, and all of Gary Myers and Todd Thompsons, you don't know probably some of these, but they, we stuck together. And that year we probably didn't have the talent we had the senior when we were juniors that we had then. But that said, it was I was fortunate to had some good scoring games.
What was your high score that year? Do you
remember? I think it was 55 against Warsaw.
Yeah.
I think.
Which was kind of a rivalry, right?
It was a rivalry, yeah. And I think there was 2 back-to-back. There was like a 50 and a 55 one night, and then the next night of the next game was that. So it just seemed like the basket was so big, and you hear that you get in a zone, and and I say this respectfully, but you get in a zone that you block everything out, and it's like, it's just one of those zones you can't explain to people. And then you don't get in the zone some other times, you're back to normal. But I remember that part of it, and it was fun and exciting, but it was just one of those things that maybe it's just by doing it over and over and over again, it just happened to get to a point of there it is.
Well, it had to be. Do you ever have an idea like how much you had scored, or were you just?
No, not during the game.
Yeah.
Not during the game. I think the only game I did, we played a team called Manchester my junior year. Yeah. And I remember that at the end of the game, I think that was 49. And I think at the end of the game, I remember the announcer saying things, and this was an away game, and that's about the only time. But the other games, Warsaw was a rivalry, and I don't even know who the other team was, but it was more or less just locked into beating Warsaw, more or less, than how many you had. And it's not like they have a board up there like some gyms do now that they shoot up, what each player has. So, and I didn't really pay that much attention those games because they were competitive, and it's not like now. Of course, you didn't have 3-point shots, and you had different things. So it was different.
What did you feel when you got to the end of the game and you looked down at the score sheet and you're like, oh, geez, I had 55?
Well, you have the regular thing you do there, that the normal thing, did I shoot too much? And so that was one of the things, and so there's a part of it there that you go, but at the same time, there's a sense of pride and a sense of, wow. But I go back to the thing is it just looked like you just throw it up there, it's going to go in. And I say that with modesty and respect. It's one of those things that people talk about that you can't explain.
Get in the zone
and you just let it take care of itself. But no, my thoughts at that time was the normal high school things, and at the same time, you're glad you won. I think that's the most important thing. I think that Yoder and everybody emphasized winning more than any other personal achievements and accomplishments, and that that was, I have to thank a lot of players because they picked or they set me up, and I can't even start with the names of many of them that were. We all had our chance, all had our specialty, if it's rebounding or defense or setting good picks or, pressing and whatever. But any records or scoring that I had contributed, so many people contributed to that it's really unfair to even comment that without bringing that up.
So you had a great year, and then, so you were Marshall County's first Indiana All-Star. How did that,
That felt good. I remember being told that. I was in school when they had Yoder and Coach Yoder and I can't think of his name, Indianapolis Star sports writer that they came and informed me, and I took pride in that, and I felt good about representing Plymouth, and it just, as I say, it goes back to the fact a lot of coaches and a lot of players, they had a big say in what I did, and the works is you couldn't do without them, and not a bit, not even close, and a lot of sacrifices on their part. Everybody likes to score, but they sacrificed, and I was fortunate.
Yeah. So you get there was an all-star game, right?
2 all-star games.
2 all-star games. Yeah. So what was that like playing with that?
Played at Hinkle. Most of them now. I think the Hinkle was the first game we played, and to think there. I remember it was, I think, sold out. It was a big thing. We had a big Plymouth contingent. I remember that. I remember they had a guy named John Garrett who played for Purdue, and Mike Flynn. He was Mr. Basketball, so I remember Monty Tao and some of those that played you before your time, but yeah, it was exciting to see the Plymouth contingent go down there. And we played Kentucky, and we won the first game, and then we played at Freedom Hall. Now I think they play at, I'm not sure, Bellarmine or Western Kentucky or somewhere, but they played at Freedom Hall, and back then they were pretty well, packed as far as the interest in it. And so it was good to represent Plymouth, and that's, being the first one, you take pride in it, but like I say, it's so many players and coaches. I can't even give them enough credit for anything I did.
So tell me a little bit about Coach Yoder and his methods.
Coach Yoder's methods, and there was a Bill Nixon. I don't know if you ever heard of Bill Nixon. Bill Nixon and them. I'll tell you. They had weight jackets, and you would run up and down stairs forever with weight jackets. If you lost, you would do bear crawls, which you're on, on the floor. Your hands were getting blistered, and the whole works. Boy, I don't know if I can tell you that one. They were pretty intense.
Yeah.
They were very intense, and I'm glad they were. They took it seriously, and their goal was to get as much out of the players as they could, and I thought they did there. But yeah, Coach Yoder, he was, he was very particular. He wanted certain things done a certain way. There was no moping. There was no, putting your head down or whatever. Bill Nixon was the same way, and they sort of blended together. They would, I remember Bill Nixon, different sport, but we didn't hit a curveball one time. That's probably how I got out of baseball. The next thing, he was throwing curveballs at your head in practice for like an hour, and you're bailing out. So he didn't want to hurt anybody, but that's his way of saying, hey, listen, you're going to have to do that. And he did the same thing in basketball. We'd have drills where you drive in there and you have a dummy, and they knock you down. You dive for a ball, and you have everybody diving for a ball like a football fumble. So those are things, but they were very intense and very respectful too. They didn't take anything off any player. I don't think some of the things they did you could do now, but at that time it was they got your attention, and they made sure that you did things the right way and acted the right way. Yeah. It was good.
Okay. Steve talked a lot about kind of the physical aspect of it, and how he felt like conditioning and then weightlifting and all that. Did they bulk up your body then for that? Or?
Well, we had not really the weights like you would go in a weight room right now. You know, you probably go over here to Plymouth and you'll see a big room with weights all up and down. They had the weight jackets and they had I can't even think what they call it. They had conditioning where you had resistance on ropes and things along that. Was more of what you did there. So you do that at the end of practice. But a lot of it was strength, and I wasn't very big, and weight-wise, so they tried to put weight on me, and
they tried to do that.
They had this stuff called Top Star at one time, and it was some kind of, it's like these drinks you get, and it tasted terrible, and I don't think it did any good. So they did that in college too, but they always said that you need to be stronger if you're going to be able to compete with all the Michigan cities, the Elkharts, the South Bends, and everybody, because their players were just so much bigger than county schools, and they weren't any better, but the players were, I remember playing some of them, and they were just physically strong, and we couldn't. So that was their forte, is saying, hey, you got to get stronger if you're going to compete against the stronger people. So, yeah, they emphasized that, and we did it.
You ever hear Coach Yoder's voice in your dreams, like I do in my coaches?
I did back then. I think from that aspect, but you never back then. You never questioned anything they did, or even looked like you questioned anything they did. Because I remember times with mostly Dixon, you might want to cut this, but somebody gave him some back talk, and I was putting my shoes on, and it was like the locker room over, and I saw the kids. I always remember this. I saw the kids' feet go right off the ground, and I kept thinking, okay, and I heard. Words, and I think he just picked him up like this. So you can cut that, Nick, if you want to, but it was a different time. And at the same time, he wasn't there to hurt anybody, but listen, you're going to be respectful, and you're going to do that. If you're not respectful, it's not that I'm going to tell you 5 times, it's one time, and that's it, and that's that. So they got your attention. But back then, but not now. As a matter of fact, I heard Yoder talk. He looked great for many, many years, and he had the same. A couple months ago, he had the same mannerisms and the same tone and everything. I thought, wow, it's like he's just stepping up 40 years later, and just the same thing.
Hasn't changed much.
No.
Yeah.
No.
So looking back. When you think about high school time in basketball, what are the memories that just pop up right for you?
I think the memory of the people. I think that's the big thing. The coaches and the Mercers and the Wallers and Yoders and Jack Edison. Jack Edison, I played one-on-one with him a lot. And he was a good player at Bethel. Some people don't know that, but we'd go one-on-one, and he was so good. We'd play in the fall before basketball, and he'd just be able to teach you so much. But back to your question, I think it's just the people that helped out. I come from a single household, and really, as I say, my parents weren't really interested that much. So, a lot of people I'll always remember took me under their wing and helped me there. And also the players that always sacrificed what, sacrificed the quote limelight, or sacrificed the scoring or whatever, because it was just, set up that way. And, that's what I remember the most. And the final thing is the town. The town was always, the last couple years, it was like, you couldn't go anywhere. Um, that it was, the town was very supportive. I'll always remember that.
So what was that like for you as a probably shy young kid, like to have all that recognition?
I think back then, excited, that aspect made you practice harder, or not harder, but focus more. So it was more or less the fact of motivated you. And now it's more or less the fact of being grateful than anything else, because a lot of times you know what's going on, but you're in your own world. You're thinking of sports and didn't think of academics like I probably should have. But you think of all those other things that guys do that age, and in that aspect. But you could, looking back at it or after it happened, you sensed it. Wow, it was exciting. But the people, man, the support, I couldn't ask for more.
Yeah. Sounds like you have a lot of good warm memories.
Good memories.
Yeah.
Good. And that's why, come back for this and come back for, I don't get back in Plymouth a lot, but at the same time, that's just because a lot of the people have moved on or passed away, and get to that age, I start watching the obituary. So my era's come and gone. And also I look at the heritage of Plymouth basketball. I think that's neat. They had Skiles and had, I can't even think of now, a left-hander, Bruce Grimm, and some of the others that were all stars or had good records. And I remember Skiles playing and hitting that shot in '82. I was there.
Oh, you were?
I was sitting in the stands at that time, and I was very proud of Jack Edison and Skiles, and I knew some of the guys, so that was exciting. So the heritage of Plymouth basketball is known throughout the state. Found that out living in southern Indiana, but
you were part of,
I feel good to be a part of it, and I take pride in it, very much so.
Yeah. So basketball took you then away. You went to Indiana State.
Mm-hmm.
And,
played basketball at Indiana State, and had 4 years there, and then I coached at Jimtown. The irony about the basketball thing is I was hired. We had summer games at Indiana State with Larry Bird. We'd play in the summer, and they'd pickup games, the regular Joe pickup games that you see, and so they hired me as a part-time assistant at Indiana State basketball, and I had Bird, and it was about 2 years before '79. And got a call from a place called Jimtown, which is up in Elkhart, and interested in being a head coach. And I wallered back and forth. And I was a part-time assistant at Indiana State, which I only got paid, I thought $10,000 was that's teaching and total at Jimtown. So I finally decided to go to Jimtown. Well, then 2 years later, they ended up going to the final two, and with Bird and the works, and I was sitting there thinking, man, what was I doing? Of course, it all ended up the same, but being able to play with Bird, not during the seasons because he was redshirted my last year, but at the same time, summer and the pickup games and scouting squad, practice squads, and things like that was a good thing.
So what was he like back then? He would have been in high school, probably,
He was. When Bird came out, he went to IU for a year, and and then he didn't like the vastness, the big, college. So he went, and I think he was the back of a garbage truck. I think he collected garbage, and then they went to Indiana State, and he signed on. And of course, you have to sit out a year, which you do now, but they have so many different rules changes now. But you sit out a year, so he was redshirt, or that year you have to sit out to play. But he was, you could tell right away that he always wanted to be on his summer team because they all winter stay, and he was always winning. And also he was pretty interesting person. If there would be fights, he'd be in the middle of them and everything. So he would, but you could tell right away that he was going to be very, very good. And then they ended up doing that. But anyway, I came up here, Jimtown, coached at Jimtown for a couple years, and then I coached at Goshen for 3. Applied for an assistant principalship here at Plymouth and didn't get it, and then we moved to a place called South Dearborn. It's Aurora, Indiana. It's in Indiana by Cincinnati.
Okay.
And then I ended up at Mitchell for 35 years, and just retired last December.
Wow.
So I have that. So that's what basketball was good for me. I would not have been able to financially, or my parents would not have been able to financially go on and get an education. So the sport has been good to me, and really helped me, educationally and with my life, job, and everything. It's been good to me.
That's usually what I ask at the last question, is to kind of look back, and you kind of answered a little bit, but I always ask, like, how did playing sports and coaching, how did that shape your life?
Yeah, and again, like I said, I think shaping my life, I would have probably gone into a different field, probably a hands, skilled, field. My mother was a secretary, and my dad worked for Bremen Foundry, and worked on the line. So my background didn't follow sports or whatever. So I think sports gave me an opportunity to get an education free, an opportunity to meet some people, and I couldn't ask for, to set me up as far as what I wanted to do in life. I wanted to be a coach, but I figured out that winning and losing has a lot to do with who's playing for you. But at the same time, it got me into education and as a teacher, principal, and superintendent of schools. So it did there. I think the people in sports also was very important to me. I keep mentioning it, the Mercers, the Yoders, and whatever. I think they taught me, you have to work at it, and you have to be self-disciplined. And I think the normal thing that sports does teach, it teaches some things that aren't good too, by the way, but some of that is the parents and not that, but it does teach you, hey, work together and set your goals and be disciplined. And I think it kept me out of trouble too. It really did.
Well, looking back, any last memories that spring to mind for you?
My last memories, I think, is what I've already said. The fact that I just want to thank, the people at Plymouth were very good to me when I was here. I have good memories. I had good teammates that me sitting here, more or less, is because of them. Is as much as anything, and also I had good coaches that cared about me, and I think that's very, very good, and that's what I would like to leave it as, is just the fact of all of those I'm very appreciative of.